Thank you. So first off, thank you all for coming. We're really happy to host you here at Google, and we hope that your experience today is as special as the effort that we put in. So Ian really wishes that he could be here. He's a little bit under the weather, but he's a trooper, and he's going to join on Meet. So Ian, are you there?
I'm here. Hey,
Hi,
Désirée. Hey, team. Hey, community.
So, oh, cool. I can actually see you now. Awesome. Well, Ian, I want to kick you off. What do you do at Google?
So thanks, Désirée. So I am the FSR, which is a field-based seller supporting multiple CPG accounts in the enterprise arena. And prior to that, I've been a 20-year retail CPG expert, I could say. I worked at Mars Incorporated for 13 years, actually with many different roles, including marketing and sales. In my last role, actually at Mars, I ran trade relations and sponsorship for Mars. So I have a lot of experience with events, really trying to drive that ROI, to get in front of our customers, and moving off from the brand side and moving into a Microsoft for 5 years on their industry team, and now at Google, trying to really drive value and opportunity to get in front of all the brands that we support and really listen and understand what the needs of the brands are so we can help them with solutions.
And just to put things in context, when Ian and I were preparing for this session, we really honed in on the idea of listening. And I really think that's what the sales and account-based marketing relationship is about, is really understanding where your customers are and meeting them there and being really conscientious of where they are in their journey, not only with Google, but also with the topics that most of the brands care about. A little bit about myself. I focus on account-based marketing for retail, consumer, as well as fashion, and work really closely with Ian on how we plan our, moments throughout the year, where we're meeting customers, where they are. Ian, let's talk a little bit about that. What is our strategy been this year? What would you say we focus on the most?
Well, I'll tell you first, I got to give a big plug to Brand Innovators. I've been part of the community for almost 10 years, the whole time. So as I mentioned, I started off at Mars on the marketing side. It was such an amazing community and almost country club environment where we could share ideas and really collaborate and create value for each other. And when I kind of moved into more of a sales role, I said, hey, this is the community that we really need to be a part of and drive value and be in front. And as Désirée said, listen to, understand where the market is and where we can help. And ultimately, Google is a brand itself, right? So, we're really dialed in and part of that community. So one of the things that Désirée and I did was to really look at the various events that Brand Innovators is going to be a part of, and investing in the 10 polls that Jared just mentioned. Also one-on-one events, kind of the experience events with individual brands that we can spend more time and drive more value with. And ultimately, I don't know what the number is now, Désirée. We can get into the numbers, but I mean, we've had a tremendous partnership with Brand Innovators over the year, and are looking to even expand that more into next year because the results have just been absolutely incredible.
So I second that on Brand Innovators. It's been a great partnership. And a lot about ABM and sales has to do with data. So before we go in and we look at the types of events that we're going to run, the partners that we're going to have, like Brand Innovators. For fashion, we work with Vogue, for example. Data is really the driving force of why we do certain events, and then also understanding the audience. So some accounts may be in a better position to attend certain events or have certain content or collateral that's put in front of them. And all of that needs to be a consistent journey. So what you're consuming in a physical environment, what you're downloading, and the conversations that you're having with Googlers, we really try to make that as cohesive as possible end to end. And we're planning for the year. So we're really thinking about that long-term journey as well. And one thing that we want to pay close attention to is really focusing on sub-industries and niches. So that's been a really big win over the last year when we look at ABM. I have counterparts that are in different industries, and we really look to meet brands and marketers where they are. And that means focusing where, Brand Innovators is doing events for CPG, for retail, for fashion, and really paying attention to that versus trying to do a spray and pray marketing tactic where there may be a lot of industries and it's not deep enough. So that's a big focus for us. And Ian, what are some of your favorite events that you've had this year, and how would you, tie it back to what we're doing with our accounts today?
Yeah, well, listen, I think the one thing that I love about brand innovators as well, and they're going to where we want them to go, is and create value in different environments. A good example is I think actually it all started last year when I first came in. We had a big dinner at Grocery Shop that's coming up in Las Vegas, and brand innovators saw the need that there could be opportunities and brands that will be part of a larger event like a grocery shop, like a CES, like a South by, and creating individual dinners and opportunities for us to engage with the brands that we're trying to help. So I have a lot of favorites. Of course, the tentpole events, the Super Bowl events that Brand Innovators does is amazing. F1, of course. But ultimately, I love the dinners. I love the dinners. I love the collaboration. I love the one day events where we can hear the stories from the brands itself and be part of that. And I just love the array of different opportunities that we have at Brand Innovators, and we very 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 happy that over the last 10 years of my involvement with Brand Innovators, I've seen them grow tremendously. And ultimately, we're, now engaging in all kinds of different experiences. I haven't been to Cannes yet, but that's got to be on my list next year. So I'm excited about that. But the tentpole events, the one-on-one meetings, the dinners, I mean, these are all amazing touch points. And again, creating that community to continue to listen and react and grow as brands together.
And one thing that I want to point out too is when we're looking at, our strategy for the year, really making sure that it all fits in together. So although we do events with Brand Innovators, we also host a lot of events as Google, and it's really about paying attention as to what that story is throughout the year. One thing that I want to talk a little bit about too, Ian, is when we're thinking about next year, where do you see the alignment between ABM and sales expanding? I know we're covering more of the business. We started with CPG as an ABM pilot, then we moved to fashion, and now we're really growing into, food and drug and mass and big box retail. Where do you see our relationship going next year and, marketing and sales?
Yeah, great question. I see the evolution of us getting more and more, right? I think the numbers don't lie. We want to talk a little bit about some of the awards that you've received as well, and the team has received. But it's almost like a snowball effect, right? We've proven out certain things within our subcategories, as Désirée mentioned, CPG, retail, and now the business is starting to really look at other categories that we can help. ABM specifically can help drive those strategic enterprise accounts that we're trying to align with. So next year, I see more tentpole events. I see, of course, more one-on-one events, almost the experience where we can drive bigger and have more intimate relationships with certain brands that we're trying to connect with. And I see us really expanding a lot more in various industries, and that's what Brand Innovators continues to do as well, which I love. They're flexible, and they're moving with us and creating more and more and more environments and events. I don't know how many there is now. I mean, I know last year was over 100. It's got to be over. I would love Jared to throw out that stat. How many touch points that Brand Innovators does. And listen, we want it all. We really value the partnership, and there's so much value across all the different types of events that they do.
So let's talk a little bit about results because I feel like that would be a fun conversation. So when we talked about how we started in a pilot, it was CPG, it moved to fashion, and now we're expanding to cover more of the business. On average, we run about 35 events a year. We are doing quite a bit of content collateral as well as part of our multi-channel long-running programs. We plan at least 12 months, preferably 18. And to give you a little bit of stats, we were able to get a few hundred million in influence pipeline within the first 6 months and saw a 245% increase by 12 months. And this is only targeting 33 accounts. So really hyper focused, focusing on brands that we know we have a strategic pursuit, and then making sure that we have long running, very nuanced, very bespoke programs that are targeted to those accounts, and they're broken out by sub industry. The results of seeing 245% increase within the first year is kind of where we are, getting the justification to build this out even further. And I guess to cover the ABM program along with sales is nominated for an ITSMA Marketing Excellence Award. So vote for us. We'll find out in October if we win. But yeah, it's a huge honor to be able to say that we built this and piloted it from scratch. Would not be possible without sales and a close alignment to our data and making sure that we're doing the right tactics at the right time and making sure that we're focusing on where accounts are in their journey with us and with important topics like digital transformation, data, supply chain, just to name a few. And as far as next steps, what are some of the events that you're looking forward to next year, Ian? And then maybe if you have any wins as well that you want to share on your side from a sales perspective.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to F1 coming up in Austin in October. It's gonna be great. I know the team did an amazing job in Miami, so excited about that next opportunity. And of course, football season is starting on Thursday, so we always have to highlight the Super Bowl program that's going to be happening. It's just evolves every single year, and more stories, especially on the sponsorship side as well, which obviously is near and dear to my heart. I'm really, really excited about that. And of course, as I mentioned, Cannes for sure next year. I will be there. And I think just to go back to my personal successes, I mean, because of Brand Innovators, we have opened up many, many new doors within the accounts that we support from our teams. We've built a great community in conversational opportunity, because that's what it's all about, helping each other and driving forward. So it's really been a huge story for me personally, because of all the people I've met and the business that now that Google can also help these companies with. So kudos to the partnership. Kudos to Désirée and the ABM team to allowing sales to do what they do best, and supporting us to grow a community, and excited for 2023.
Thanks, Ian. And I guess I want to leave time for Q&A, but when we were thinking about our topics for next year and trends, what are things that stick out to you? I mean, we're here to listen, so we would love your feedback on where we think we should be focusing next year. But what do you think the big trends are for us as a market as we go into next year and our planning? For me, I think of like digital transformation, data. What are your thoughts?
Data is king. There's so much, and we're doing a lot on the Google Cloud side. We're doing a lot with our media and ads business, and we're using those synergies to create better analytics and better ways to know your customer and understand your customer and understand where to market to your customer. If you have $1, where do you invest it in? Right? We're using techniques and tactics to drive new solutions to the market to help brands do better, and everybody wants ROI. So these are the type of analytics that we go hand in hand with Google, and I'm excited. I mean, digital transformation, of course, and everybody's in a different journey of that digital transformation. Every brand is different, so we can cater to those brands and understand where they are in their journey and help them accelerate their growth through Google and our partnerships and our partners.
And then wrapping up, shameless plug, but we are going to have more events like these in major markets. So next year, you can expect us to have ABM events like this one in Austin, Chicago, Atlanta. And then we're also doing LA in November. So come on over to the West Coast. That's where I'm located. Would love to have you. And I want to leave time for Q&A. So are there any questions? If so, please use the mic so we can hear you. And it's okay if a question is, what is account-based marketing? Because I'm used to getting that a lot. Yeah. I,
Good universe. What is an appropriate universe of accounts to target at any given time? By definition, you're kind of zeroing in on your best candidates. But is it 10? Is it 20? Is it 200? What do you think is a good number that we should focus on?
I love this question, and I get it a lot from my sales leaders because it's a good problem to have. They want to cover as much of the business as possible. But when you're looking at account segmentation, we look at 3 buckets. So there's your one-on-one programs, your one-to-few, which typically I don't like to see more than 25 to 50 accounts. And then you have your one-to-many, which could be hundreds. So my team focuses on one-to-one and one-to-few. There is a law of diminishing return when it comes to marketers and their bandwidth to handle accounts. So typically one ABM practitioner should have a max of 5 one-on-one accounts and maybe 1 to 2 one-to-few programs. And those are clusters of accounts that have very similar either points of view or goals or challenges that they're trying to achieve. It actually gets really interesting, and I may get a little nerdy for a second, but when you look at the data, what unifies those accounts? How can you customize a journey? Maybe 30% of the way, and then the rest is to the group so that you can get economy of scale. But really looking at sub-industry, it's a great way to segment accounts, and then also seeing where those accounts within the peer set actually rank against each other. Because there's some accounts that are farther along in their data journey, and then there are accounts that are really starting out, and it would overwhelm them to be targeted with that kind of event or messaging. So really understanding the maturation of those accounts in the peer set.
Great, thank you. I've kind of got a companion question to that, which would be, okay, what would be the appropriate amount to allocate or to acquire a new ABM customer, right? Because in that you're kind of putting all your efforts against a limited number of accounts. I mean, that kind of implies, is there a percentage that you would spend? I'm not talking about what that might entail, but what would you invest against acquiring a new target account?
You invest in terms of funds for each account, or? Yeah, so this is a kind of a controversial topic because there is, kind of a front load with ABM programs. So it takes about a year before you're really sure of what the cost per acquisition is. And then when we start looking at measurement, we start to learn and get better at identifying accounts. What I will say is, and no offense to sales, they're amazing. Don't just take a list and say, this is it. These are the accounts I'm going to cover. Make sure that you have data to back why those accounts should be in the program. And then a great, way to just have democracy within the account list is, does it make sense to do marketing to those accounts? If you can't actually do an event, if you can't send them anything, if you have no marketable contacts, these are all things that can, help an account not be part of an ABM program if you have to whittle down the list. But fund-wise, it will take about a year. I do have some numbers in my head, but I would say the closer to one-on-one you get, the more expensive it is and the more resource intensive it is because you're just really doing custom programs. You could have a whole year planned for one account, which is a really interesting life for an ABM practitioner. Hi. I feel like I probably could have passed you the mic. It probably would have been closer. Sorry.
You mentioned building out the ABM program at Google from the ground up. How was like starting it and like going to where you are now?
Thank you so much for asking this question. I have a little bit of PTSD because it was a journey, but really grateful for the journey. I started focusing on, I started as an IC on the West Coast for the largest software enterprise SaaS companies that we cover. And it was really just a team of field marketers and saying, how can we do ABM-like activities? How can we think in a way that gets us focused on customer centricity, less about what Google has to offer and sell, because there is a seat at the table for that naturally, but really just focusing on where accounts, what their goals are and meeting them there. Then over time, we went into a co-leadership model. So that was, pulling folks from different regions and saying, well, we need to build this. It's growing wings. And now we're at a place where we're sub-verticalized by industry. And it's a really great way to segment your ABM account list because you're able to say, I can go really deep in retail, consumer, and fashion. My peers in healthcare and gaming can do the same. And we can really have a lot more targeted approach when we're really focusing on those topics by industry. So it's been about 2.5 years, and that's where our journey is now. And I have peers in healthcare, finance, gaming, media, and we're looking to grow even more next year. So it takes time. I will say that. You have to have patience.
Can you just give a case study of, you don't have to name the brand, but something where you did a one-to-one or one-to-a-few, because that's interesting to me because typically they'd be competitors, and specifically kind of what that case study would look like. What were the key tactical elements? What was the results, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and Ian, I think we can tag on this one. So to give you context, when we talk about these year-long journeys, they are very multi-channel. So, Ian and I work really closely with Sydney, who is our BDR, and really making sure that even the touch points that we have between sales, marketing, and BDR are super cohesive. It's an orchestrated affair throughout the year. So one example that comes to mind, and actually how we started to do our measurement model, is we actually create a hit list. So who are the people at these companies that we know we want to have conversations with? And actually being a facilitator of conversation. So we know that some of the individuals at these accounts, yes, they want to talk to Google, but they also want to talk to each other. So where can we facilitate conversations and, facilitate learning between the accounts and create an environment that's not competitive? So if you're all faced with similar challenges, and our data can back this up, that we know that these are cares and concerns of our brands, how can we bring them together so that they can learn? And the conversations about Google happen organically, and we have a seat at the table, and we're not in a rush to have those conversations because we know that when there's education and learning in the group, there's natural opportunities for us to help them achieve their goals, i.e. Google services and products. And as far as an example, Ian, can I mention your account name? Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Ian has an amazing relationship with Hershey. And Hershey was like one of our, original like success case studies. We basically saw that the individuals that we knew were a core component of Ian's conversations were actively engaged consistently. And then we're like, how can we continue and listen and take feedback from those sessions and use that to plan the rest of our year? I think I've gone over, but hopefully that answers your question.